Welcome to Trojan TV Extra, a special edition of Trojan TV without announcements and lots of great news and feature stories. This week's theme is Getting a Job, followed by things you might not know about your teacher in a new classroom spotlight. Enjoy!
For the first episode of our new how-to series, this is How to Get a Job. First, we met with Therese, an employer of Roy's General Store.
I'm looking for someone who is personable and can present themselves and be friendly to customers, present Roy's image in a positive way, just show everyone that we're really glad that they came in to shop here. I look for someone who makes eye contact with me, who can present themselves well verbally, someone who's not chewing gum and keeping their eyes down will make eye contact with me. Not using ums and likes and a lot of slang language when they're presenting themselves to me.
After that, we arranged a conversation with Subway's manager, Caleb.
Someone that I know will come to work, someone who's work-oriented and has the right drive, someone who I know if I tell something, they're going to take it as constructive criticism, not that I'm telling them that they're doing it wrong, and someone who will learn and change what they're not doing. Don't come in looking gross, dress nice, make yourself look presentable, smile, be happy, and just calm down. Don't get too nervous. I'm not a crazy psycho person, but seem to get nervous during interviews, and it's not that big a deal.
We also caught up with one of our East Middle School students to give us some insight into the world of having a job.
I work at Burger King, the one on South Airport and Garfield. I'm a cashier. I do food prep and also a little bit of maintenance. I personally think students should get a job as early as possible just so they have time to save up for what's important, such as college or a car.
If you want to have a job this summer, one thing you have to do is go to the main office and get a work permit.
Well, come on into the main office and either Mrs. Newhart or I will help you with it. You get your work permit and you have to take it to your employer first, and they fill out the top part. Your parents fill in the family information, and then you bring it back to the main office and we verify all the information and we stamp it that the school knows that you're going to be working during the school year.
Well, I had to come to the school and I had to get a work permit, It's basically like a sheet of paper that you have to fill it out with your information, the work's information, and then you have to have the school sign off on it.
It is Michigan's law that all students must have a work permit.
If you are 13 or 14, the most typical age for middle school children, you are allowed to work 3 hours a day or 15 hours a week during the school year. When it's a non-scheduled school week, you can work up to 40 hours a week, but there are certain jobs, only certain jobs that you can do. So you would get your work permit, take it to your employer, bring it back, and we will stamp it and you can go to work.
More students have been getting jobs for after school.
I'm a dishwasher and I'm also a food prep. It's affected my life in a positive way because it allows me to spend money the way I want, allowing me to have a freedom. It depends. Either I ride my bicycle or I get a ride. Or ride the city bus,
This has been Cam, Ashton, and Brad reporting for Trojan TV.
For this week's Things You Didn't Know About Your Teacher, we caught up with Mr. Mead, who builds cars in his free time.
Okay, so this is a 1989 Firebird Formula, and it has the removable T-top roof. It's got the hood scoop and the fancy wheels. This car originally had a 305 Chevy small block, but when I bought it for $700, I spent years just taking everything apart and putting it back together, and we replaced that with a much bigger 350 small block Chevy, which is what it has now. So it's a pretty fun car to drive. Sometimes it breaks down, but that's just part of the fun of having an old car.
Mr. Mead's love for fixing cars started with his father.
So I didn't grow up working on cars. Actually, I was 18 years old. I was a freshman in college, and my dad and mom got me a 1985 Chevy Celebrity, which is a very lame car. And my dad taught me, he took me aside and said, son, I'm going to teach you how to change the oil on your car. And he showed me, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I just saved about $20 changing my own oil. And so from there, it kind of took on a life of its own. Later, I learned how to replace spark plug wires, brake jobs, radiator hoses, you know, all sorts of things. And each job I did gave me a little bit more confidence to try the next one.
A 1980s TV show helped inspire Mr. Mead's love for hot rods.
I think the reason why I like that car the most is because when I was a kid, there's a really cool show called Knight Rider, and that featured the Pontiac Firebird. And it was brand new, very aerodynamic. Actually, at that time, it was the most aerodynamic car that General Motors had ever built. And it was very fast looking. It wasn't actually all that fast because cars in the 80s were not fast.
This has been Summer and Kylie reporting for Trojan TV.
Food shortage, lack of fresh water. There's still disease, like all the food disease, they're gonna run out of food because there's not enough food meant for all of them to have food on that ship. There's no clean space in the ships.
For this week's Classroom Spotlight, we caught up with Mrs. Mackey's AT block during a slavery activity.
The activity was to have students experience dilemmas or situations that slaves would have experienced and having to make choices about what to do about those situations, and all of the choices are not very good.
Students were given 4 options that a slave could have chosen as their fate.
It just kind of gives you a new perspective on how the U.S. used to be.
It definitely helped me to get the critical thinking portion of understanding slavery and to really understand how personal and how difficult it was.
You know, we could read about that, you know, there was, you know, millions and millions of slaves in the South, blah, 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 right? But it's more important to me that the students would understand that this really affected every facet of our society. And once they understand and can identify with people who were in slavery, like doing an activity like this, I think they're able to make better judgments and also use more critical thinking when they're discussing topics like slavery.
This has been Carrie and Ethan reporting for Trojan TV.
Thank you for watching this week's Trojan TV Extra. You can follow GMC and Trojan TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook by searching @EastGMC. Don't forget to tune in on Friday for a regular Trojan TV.